All right, welcome to Pass the Mic. It is Friday, June 19th, 2026, episode 209. We are back on video so everyone can see our handsome faces. How are you, Mike Gervasi?
Good. How are you? Happy Juneteenth, everybody listening. How are you
Oh
doing?
yeah, there's a lot of people off today. Can start their day by listening.
Yep, very good. Very good.
I believe my wife is off, state employee. She's off. Feedback and errors. This came from Max, but sometimes Max will give us feedback from Todd. Don't you think that this was like sort of Todd, the thing about?
That definitely seemed like Todd. He usually tells us, but from time to time I get that.
Well, it's because Max goes like bullet, 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 and then occasionally he'll send one later in the day that's just a paragraph.
Yes.
So I'm going to guess it's from Todd. And Todd we were talking about the Superman ice cream, how I went on something that I normally don't get because it was not being charged. It was at a party. And Todd's input was anything cold and delicious or anything cold and refreshing is free. You just take it. Yeah. Todd, I will agree 99% of the time. I'm going to turn down one thing.
What's that?
An ice cold. I can't drink an ice cold Budweiser. Free, whatever. I think I mentioned this before. Once I was in Joe's and they were giving away free. I cannot do it. Although I read somewhere that if you're, there's this. It's not alcohol it dehydrates you, right?
Correct. Yes.
However, it's a huge percent water. Like beer is a big percent water. You're not supposed to turn down beer like if you're in the desert. You're not supposed to be like, this is going to dehydrate. The water in it is more beneficial than the little bit of alcohol that's going to dehydrate you. So that's my safety tip.
I thought you were going to make fun of Budweiser because people say it tastes like water. So that's the direction I thought you were going.
No, Budweiser tastes like sand. So that's maybe the desert. I would take one if I was stranded in the desert. So got that. Coach Tony went back an episode back. Substitute's one of his favorite movies. I could see Coach Tony like in The Substitute.
What about he didn't mention The Substitute 2, 3, or 4, right? Those were good too. It wasn't with Tom Berenger, but they were outstanding.
The Substitute always has a place in my heart for the library scene. Always that's Tom Pack, who gave a little trouble to a little heat because of the photo collage. He missed 1 week. He totally redeemed himself this last week. This last collage was some of his best work, I think, of all time. Includes your kid, and includes Danny and Natalia in a picture there on graduation day. He morphed in a picture of the Uncle Joe. I did that to the On the Border being closed, which I love. Our new listener, Jen Witt, decked out in Pistons garb, found a picture of Jen. I texted her. I'm like, you definitely got to check out this photo collage. So yeah, he did it. And he found the Forrest Gump. I sent you the Forrest Gump TikTok. What did you think of it? Was it pretty funny?
It was very funny. It was very funny.
Shane Gillis didn't have to act too far out of character, I don't think.
I didn't reply to that. Okay.
No, you didn't, but it is pretty funny skit. So you even got that picture of Steve guy. He's got the mullet.
Yeah.
So there's my feedback for this week.
Mine, let's start with the Ren Dog class reunions. He didn't have his 10th due to COVID, but he agrees with me on people hating reunions, overrated. I don't think it's a bad time at all. He wouldn't mind seeing them. He did mention he mentioned running into somebody at the ballpark recently. I'll leave that person's name out unless that person becomes a listener and wants us to. I enjoy Gervasi's hot take on Gagne's article he sent you guys. Absolutely on point. I'll make sure Gagne listens this weekend. Do you want to address that? There's a couple things I'm going to address from last week. Do you want to address what Nick said to you via text, and then I'll kind of respond?
To me via text.
Didn't he text you about the article?
No, I thought it was Rennie.
Okay. So, Nick, I think you're right. And Nick and I did talk via email. So I don't know if something got lost in translation after. I do focus on elements of any article, and I was immediately turned off. So I guess, Nick, it's a sensitivity on my end that when I see people say those things, I immediately feel like they're attacking the public schools and the way history is taught. And it just happens so often. I guess it's kind of just a natural trigger for me, even in circumstances where, in this case, maybe the author's ultimate point was beyond just that. But the fact that he mentioned that, I couldn't let it go. And so that's why I addressed that. I enjoy Gervasi's hot mic take. Okay, there we go. I just mentioned that a little bit more from the Ren Dog. I want you to do your hot mic take. I'm not going to do that. I got something else, Ren Dog. I will mention it though on my hot mic about this is from Ren Dog now. I don't want to offend any other listener. On the New York fans acting like morons during the NBA Finals in the streets and throwing stuff at Wemby outside the hotel room. Obviously not called for, but I do think that the New York fans were absolutely outstanding with a few minor exceptions, and you could say major exceptions. Burning a school bus is major, but overall, Jon Stewart did a really cool bit on. He's like, I was out there. This is not the narrative that is being spun by certain media outlets. It's just not true. It was outstanding, and so in that regard, I guess I'm addressing it right now, Rendog. I disagree. I do think that the fans throwing things at Wemby are ridiculous. I make it a point in my life. I would not ever say anything to a player that I wouldn't say in person. So when I was as an example, when I was at the Piston game last year and Piston fans were chanting "F you Brunson," I did not take part in that. Mostly because I think so much of him as a player, but this is a human being, and I don't like doing that. I'm not saying a guy, and I'm not saying that I'm not being holier now. To me, it's kind of a turnoff in general. I don't think it's a good look for Detroit. Couple other things here. Ken, my stepdad, Mike, the pod was really interesting, really cool that Carlson actually has a class on aviation. He thought that was great. Wait a minute. This is from Swimming in the Lake, but this was okay. So
yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
a previous episode.
Dated. He did send something. I'm going to address my hot mic to Antoine. I'm gonna need y'all to label those sound effect buttons in the studio already. So
yeah, Max got on my case too. He thought it was a bit. It wasn't, but we got to the studio for a while to get rusty. Maybe I should just label them.
We're not going to be in the studio for a little while. So
no, we'll get an intern though, maybe, and that can be their first job.
Who's going to be the intern?
I don't know. We'll see. Rocky Georgie.
Jeff Sanford, Torch Lake Sandbar, now 30% urine by volume. So that's why
who's testing that?
That's a good question. He just sent me a screenshot, so I don't know the specifics. Lastly, and we don't have the bleep button on the Chicago Bulls documentary. Michael Jordan addressed Isaiah Thomas as a bleep hole.
Okay.
All right. And we don't have the bleep, so
no
inserts on there. And Isaiah's point back was, you said it in the now. If you either stand by it or if you're going to take it back, publicly take it back. And so I'm going to publicly take something back from a week ago. I think you know the direction this is going.
Yes.
Talk about this. I made this decision. I was going to double down on this just to have the collateral not have the collateral damage with the collateral damage. But I have to admit publicly, I had confused, and we had probably done this before.
I think so. My memory thinks this happened once before, but go ahead.
The Glass Onion with a different establishment, which I will not name. But the fact that you mentioned, and then it's kind of coming back to me. I wonder if we get Tom Pack on this to find the episode where the same mistake was made.
Oh, that's a lot to do, because I can't even tell
just
you. I
kidding.
don't even know what the episode. Yes,
he'd have to be Garcia from Criminal Minds to do that. But I did.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying the place you mixed it up, because your commentary wasn't that bad anyway. So what's the other place? Because it's fair. What's it called?
I'd rather not.
Oh, all right. Well, sorry.
It has the glass in it too. How's that?
Okay. All right.
Different city.
It's not a rustic manor.
They actually look pretty similar. So.
Oh, really? Now you're giving even more clues. I'm sure that someone will be able to figure this out.
I'm sure they will. Anybody from Taylor probably will. But yeah, so that's it. And again, my hot mic take will be on. And again, Rendog, I don't want you to think I was ignoring, because I did address it. But my hot mic take is actually going to be on fan behavior, but in a different way. So
the Rendog was texting me today, as a matter of fact, and I apologize for being a little slow with my responses, because I was at the vet. Remember, that was one of the things I said. One of the first things I was doing. The vet appointment was today, and he was asking about my I don't care shirt with Tommy Lee Jones, and he asked if I wear that every year at the end of the year, and I said no, that I usually do a tee like that. I just didn't get a new one, so I went with that back to back. He's a big fan of that, the Tommy Lee Jones shirt.
Yeah, I've gathered that. So okay,
I'm gonna watch that, I think, again over this summer. I've been going through all the Tom Clancy movies. Finally, I found them all streaming, like I said, and I'm up to the one with Ben Affleck now. So,
which one is that?
Is that The Sum of All Fears?
I've never seen it, but I think you're right. But man, let me plug One of my all-time favorite movies, underrated. The Town, outstanding.
Oh.
If you haven't seen it, I
So have you ever
recommend.
seen any of these Tom Clancy movies? The Hunt for Red October,
No, I have not.
Patriot Games. It's really interesting to watch these. They were like early '90s. Just the way that stuff was filmed, non-green screen.
Yeah,
Pretty cool. Just a different, just a, stuff. It wasn't perfect either. Like cuts, scenes. Like it. And I miss that. I guess is what I'm saying. Like
sure.
everything now is so digitized and perfect. But
Hey,
but
and so listen, Ren Dog, if you're listening, I want to know your thoughts on The Town, because that to me, not only is it to me one of the most underrated movies, it's one of my all-time favorites. So great job at Ben
okay.
Affleck in that movie.
As I was looking, because I am a dork, I look up things on Wikipedia as I'm watching these, and I guess one of the controversies with these books to movies is that uh, they thought the author Tom Clancy thought Harrison Ford at 49, 50 when these were coming out was too old for the character. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Well, his character is in the books younger.
Okay.
That's why they went. That's why when they did the next one, they went with Ben Affleck and they sort of put it back in time. That's why they did that. And Ben Affleck obviously was younger.
Did Tom Clancy, did he just recently do something with one of the Clintons, write a book with one of the Clintons?
I don't know, but he's probably ended up dead if he did. Isn't that what happens? Fake news. Uh,
Yeah.
you ready for my mic of the week?
Let's go.
All right. So we had a championship. I went and looked it up. Carolina Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup. I know we've
Okay.
talked a lot about the Knicks. Michael Riley, defenseman for the Carolina Panthers, 32 years old, born in Chicago. His dad actually played hockey, was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, never played a game though in the NHL, but Michael Riley, defenseman, American born, now he's Stanley Cup champion.
Oh,
Congratulations. So there we go. Relative and whenever these things happen, I do a Google search and Michael's pretty common, but it's with our generation it's slowly starting to phase out, right? But usually on one of these teams you can find a Michael still
yeah.
somewhere.
It's
And
it's
even
getting
even
a bit.
these hockey teams that have a lot of French and European names, I still able to find a Michael. So
Sure.
Michael Riley, congratulations. All right, education topic. This actually came from instant feedback, sitting at a table at Kylie Lewandowski's graduation party. Congratulations, Kylie. Another shout out, congratulations.
Sure.
The Pates were sitting there. The UP aficionado was sitting there. They were giving some feedback. They were shocked that my wife never listens. So my wife had to give the speech that she hears enough of my crap at home. She doesn't want to hear about doesn't need to hear it anymore. But Elizabeth Pate and Chris Pate, were giving instant feedback. And one of the things they said they liked about the show is that even though the education topic obviously is education 99% of the time, right, relating to schools, they see similarities to their profession, which is nursing. All right.
Sure.
And with that, I'm like, okay, let's do an education topic. And we could be way off. We could be wrong with this because I'm barely an expert on education. I don't even think I'm an expert on education. So by no means am I going to say, oh, I know what's going on in nursing or I know what's going on.
Sure.
And although a lot of people seem to do that with education that aren't in education
Yeah, all
for
the
some
time, because
reason,
they went to school, and therefore that makes them
you know,
experts.
it's funny. Do people go to their doctor? Like, and when he suggests
I
something, they say,
know, I
well, wait,
know.
well, maybe now with RFK Jr., people do this. They go to their
It's
doctor and
funny,
say,
Mike. You know what? I did see a famous person just said on a podcast, on a rival podcast, I believe it was a Joe Rogan one. He said, I'm not going to say the person's name, but I will never go to a doctor for routine visits ever again because
oh,
of
okay.
the mistrust. So maybe that's where we're at. I mean, that's
Yeah. Like
incredible, isn't it?
as Dr. Carver is going to fill my next filling, I'm gonna be like, well, wait a minute, are you sure you want to do it this way? Like,
I saw on YouTube, and I did my
yeah.
own research,
So,
and I discovered that you should do it this way.
but again, so we want to preface that right away. So we could be way out. We could say something here. This is no offense to your profession
Sure.
because we're wrong with that. So we could be wrong with that. So do you have any that you want to go with? I have a list of 3. Let's see what you have to say.
Same here, same here. And these are
Okay.
more from personal experience in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
So, number one, shout out to, and I find this to be true, a colleague of ours, Mr. William Zachary, who
Okay.
mentioned this one day when he had his class in the library, and he was discussing, he was going over a lesson with a particular student, and the student walked away, and he's like, "This is what politicians that make decisions on education don't understand. The larger you make these class sizes, the less actual teaching." And he's like, this is teaching to me when you're working one-on-one and you're talking to a student and you could see it like in real time that this person is learning. And that is certainly the case, Mike, when you have a class of 30 versus when you're talking to one individual student. You for a kid, first off, in the one-on-one setting, will be honest with you a lot more when he or she doesn't understand. But second, they are also more likely to ask follow-up questions. Class of 30, they're not. So he's like, that's learning. So the very first thing that comes to my mind was something my sister used to do, and that's a personal trainer. She was a personal trainer, and you put the ball in the hands of the person to really push themselves. I hope that we do that as educators as much as we possibly can. So that was my number one.
Do you want to go
Second,
one? You want to go
yeah, go ahead.
alternate?
No, you go ahead. Go ahead. You give me. Go ahead.
All right, so my number one, and not to like just go easy with this, I'm going to take what Elizabeth said, but I'm not going to just say nursing. I'm going to go most medical fields, and I'm going to go for a couple reasons. One, and I sort of joked around about the dentist earlier, right? Educators get held to this standard of test scores, right? Like everyone has to, what was their pre-test, what was their post-test? Well,
Right.
your doctor, your dentist, they are going to tell you things that you need to do so that you can help improve your conditions, right? And if just like a teacher is going to tell you, hey, here's what you need to do to pass the AP US Gov test, student A that goes and does all these things probably going to pass the AP US Gov test. Student B that goes home and plays, Tetris all day on their GameCube, all right, is not. But you're still, as the public looks at your scores, is responsible for that. Well, same thing. If I don't brush my teeth at all and I ignore what Dr. Carver says and I don't floss or whatever, and all of a sudden he's
Sure.
got to pull out 3 teeth and I got to be like, look at my smile now, also I believe in that field too, especially like ER people. Here's who you're dealing with. You're dealing with them. You don't get a say. You know what I'm saying? Yes, if you run a private practice or whatever, you can. But for the most part, like when you're in healthcare, like here's the people
Yeah.
coming in, you're
Right.
dealing with them, and I think too, like like I think people, and I don't know what it is, but in the last 10, 15 years, like my parents' generation would never have talked down to an educator, administrator, a doctor in an office, a nurse in an office, a nurse at somewhere that was a trained professional, and now for some reason there's a green light for that. So we all feel that, right? Like it's
Sure.
like, this is America. I'm going to tell you how I really feel, even though, and yes, are there sometimes when you deal with rude people in all these facilities and you maybe want to say something, that's fine. But now we feel like anything that these people want to say is a green light go. In some cases, up to the point, possible violence.
Yeah. Right.
Sadly. So that's again, my next two are not, are on my own, obviously, but I think Elizabeth, and I may be wrong. I'm sure they'll give us feedback on more specific things that they're thinking about, but obviously dealing with the public, obviously being responsible for things that are not necessarily that you have some control over, but really it rests with the person you're dealing with. That's a key
Mhm.
thing of education, right?
Sure.
All right. What's your second one?
Second, event planner. I've had, we've talked about him before. I'm mentioning it again. Chris Judd, who is responsible for getting people in and out safely of local sporting events and concerts and things like that, whether they're at Ford Field or Michigan Stadium. He is now in doing the same type of work in Nashville for the local teams down there. And a lot of the things he mentioned are very similar. Event planning, it's as simple as lesson planning in that regard. This is our goal. Here's how we're going to get there. Managing personalities, managing different people. He just happens to be managing more adults, but there's a lot of similarities there. And you have to, the timing, dealing with lunch hour, dealing with every aspect of it, just sounded very similar. And it's funny because I didn't even know my perception of what an event planner was. I don't know if it's because the movie Wedding Planner, I think with J Lo or whomever, was always what I thought of it. And he went into event planning going into college simply because he wanted to stay around sports. That wouldn't even have been a thought in my mind. But now he gets to work in stadiums, gets to meet all these different people. But the bottom line is, I think the planning that goes into that, there's certainly some parallels between that and what we do for a living. So that's my second.
That's a good one. You ready for my second? And our aviation expert, Kim Lahr, is going to like this. Flight attendants.
Okay.
Flight attendants, you're responsible for a group of people. When you think about when a flight you take, who are the first people teaching you? They're literally teaching you. And what do you have?
Sure.
You have 2/3 of the class not paying attention, right? Like Right? I mean, literally, they're teaching, and this very important stuff. They aren't listening. And then when you see these things, like I notice, like when they've had these emergency landings where people have thankfully survived, you're not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to take anything, right? And these idiots are still trying to get their bags
Sure.
and stuff because again,
Yeah.
nobody listened to the instructions.
Sure.
Again, the same thing I talked about before: people being rude, discourteous, possibly putting their hands on them. So I think it's another job that's they're trained, they know what's going on, but people think they know more than them. You're dealing with who you're dealing with. You don't get to handpick. I guess if you get enough seniority, you get first class, but who knows? That could be worse. Those people could probably be even worse.
Sure.
So
Sure.
again, so there you go. Flight attendants. I think that's
I like that. I
a
never thought
good
about that.
example. And again, we need to have Kim on. I think we need to have her on an episode. I think she'd be a good
Sure.
guest.
Okay.
What's
My
your
number
third and
3.
final?
So I worked at Target for more than 6 years, and I couldn't help but notice this was I went 3, 2, 1, so this is my number 1. The hierarchical structure of Target is very similar to what we have in a sense that you have store managers to me that are akin to assistant principals. You have your lead store manager that's akin to the principal, and then you have your regional manager. To me, that would be the
Superintendent.
superintendent. And the regional manager visits sometimes, just kind of like the way a superintendent will visit and see how things are going. At the end of the day at Target, we used to, the store would close, and much like test scores, in this case, it was the bottom line. How much money did we make today? And, people would celebrate the successes. This was our goal. This is what we achieved. So in that regard, setting those goals, and, it's no mystery. I think the listener knows this, that education was modeled on the industrialization of the United States in a myriad of ways, up to and including summer vacation and things like that. But the business model, the similarities there as well. So just this was, like I said, my number 1. I've had similar personalities in both aspects, from assistant principals to the principals and things like that, and people that you like to follow, people you weren't as sure about. But so to me, this was a slam dunk similarity.
I sort of went the opposite way. My one's closest, and now my third one to the furthest is, I went 1, 2, 3 instead of 3, 2,
Okay.
1. So, but number 3, another job, again, probably disrespected even more, and I think much harder job. But law enforcement officers, I think
Yeah.
at the core, especially like and everyone's different. Police officers in a huge city are much different than what we have, like here in
Yes.
Rockwood and Brownstown and Gibraltar. I think when you have the suburban police officers, it is almost more like educating and teaching. You know what I mean? Like they're yes, when a crime's going on, they're there, but I think for the most part, they're there to try to, you know, instruct. And I saw the Gibraltar Police just did a post about bridge jumping. The officers we have in our school, they're trying to, especially with teenagers and kids, be a positive influence and say, hey, so we don't turn into criminals, right?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like Nate told me the other day, he admitted the first time to getting pulled over. This is a funny story. I'm violating his.
Wow.
Because he got pulled over coming off the 75 ramp, sort of a rolling stop. It's the guy asked him, was a Brownstown cop, and asked him, and he like license and proof of insurance. He handed him his license, and he handed him his Blue Cross Blue Shield card.
Proof
So
of
this
insurance. That's it.
So, which is a hilarious story. The guy goes, "Oh, you've never been pulled over before, have you?" The guy was
That's
pretty,
great.
and he was a nice guy. He's like, "Did you stop?" He's like, and Nate's answer, my son. He's like, "I'm guessing by you pulling me over, I didn't."
Yeah.
But he gave him a warning, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was
shout
going to
out
ask.
to
Did you get a ticket? So I'm
yeah.
sure.
So that was, and he eventually found the right insurance card, not the Blue Cross Blue Shield card.
That's
So,
good.
but I think like, and even like downtown though, big cities, I see them. They don't want to arrest you right away. Like if they see somebody parking somewhere, you see that most of the time, right? Like I don't think it's a lot easier to like avoid a crime than it is to do all the paperwork and arrest
Right.
somebody, I guess.
Right.
So that's mine. I think those are pretty good. We'd love to hear if our listeners have any others. I don't know what else has summers off like we do. So
That's true. That's true.
yes. All right, overrated, underrated. We're going to keep it again. We're trying to keep everything up with what's going on. It's the World Cup. That's the big thing going on here. Soccer, as the Americans call it. What's your overrated?
This one was easy for me. I thought the same thing with the Hockey World Championships. I don't know how you ever decide a game of this magnitude with shootouts. So that's my
Oh yeah,
overrated. I know it's
Okay.
exciting, everything else, but that's not that's an exceptional part. And there's probably my unscientific observation would be there's probably more goal kicks in soccer than hockey. Though I'm not sure about that, but regardless, that's not the normal flow of the game. I've never understood how you decide
And that
these.
happens. I'm sure it happens
Yeah,
often.
right.
Mine is the diving slash whining is overrated.
Okay.
I think it's the one thing that holds me back from really liking it. But in some ways, and I'm gonna, this is almost like you're overrated. It's sometimes funny, like to watch. Like I don't hate it because I'm not a pure soccer fan, but like I can see why this would not ever give me. And then like I'm just trying to imagine like TJ Watt getting held against a big play and then like going into. I mean, and guys do sometimes
They
a
do.
little
They do.
bit, but they don't like embellish or like if somebody gets hit, you know what I mean? Like it's almost funny when it happens right in the NFL or whatever, like when guys clearly fake something like it
Yeah.
gets,
Yeah.
but in soccer it's like a normal thing, like it's part of the game.
So it's funny because a lot of people wrongly blame Europeans for bringing, with the 92 Olympics in Barcelona, a lot of more Europeans got involved in basketball. You've had a lot of professionals. They wrongly blame that flopping aspect that has become a part of basketball to Europeans who've grown up with soccer, but it was a part of it was a part of basketball before.
Oh yeah.
Lambier flop, the Portland fans called it. So, but I agree with you. It is, some of these things are pretty comical in soccer.
What's I hate when I'm watching announcing basketball is the 3-point shot flop. Like when a guy squares up and takes a three and there may be like a sliver of a finger and they go falling back almost into the first row of the seats. I'm talking high school basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's
mean that's something that the NBA has to work on. The referees are giving those calls, so it's
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Because
and I'm
I
not.
mean, if you hit it, it's a 4-point play. I mean,
Yeah.
possible. I mean, but all right, underrated. What do you got?
So just like the NCAA tournament, the games, the World Cup is always played in different areas. Those games that do not involve, where you have you have the fan bases of both sides, but then when the neutral fan base gets behind a team, and I don't know if it's as apparent in soccer, but I have noticed it from time to time as it is like an NCAA tournament game. But when the local fans get behind a team, I think it's such a cool thing. So I'm applying the NCAA tournament to the World Cup.
Well, I just have the whole passion of the fans and our visitors that
Okay.
are coming from Europe that hopefully are being allowed in here. I don't know. Hopefully they're not sneaking in. But their passion. You're seeing a lot of videos about, and I'm going to get into that in my hot mic a little bit. But also, I saw something too. I think the field conditions are beautiful. Like, and I've seen the NFL players already come out and be like, "Hey, man, these guys get to play on this beautiful grass that's well
Yeah.
maintained. They get it and we can't have, and there's been a lot of talk about even this field turf is tough on these guys and that sort of thing. And I think like a nice, clean, perfect, and again, shout out to Michigan State. I think their uh, program had a lot to do with these fields. Perfectly groomed pitches, right? Isn't that what they're called? I don't want to.
Hmm.
The perfectly groomed pitch it's a beautiful sight to see. That's underrated. So the landscaping aspect and the fan aspect. All right, hot mic take. What do you got?
So back to Ken, my stepdad sent me this. It's an article. This is our culture. Japan fans clean up World Cup stadium. So after a game that that Japanese fans attended, their spectators stayed behind after the 2-2 draw to make sure they left the stadium as they found it, meticulously picking up litter and stuffing it into blue plastic bags. So they cleaned up.
It was
Um,
Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston did it as well.
Yeah, he
Oh,
helped them.
okay, so you know what? I think I did read that. So I thought that was so cool, and I had to juxtapose that with a specific event that took place this weekend in Washington D.C., where our fans are, a UFC fighter described the former first lady as a man
Yeah,
to cheering crowds. And lest our listeners on that side of the aisle think I'm only attacking one side of the aisle, I will say I would venture to guess a large percentage of the World Cup fans from America are probably leaning left and would probably never think of doing such a thing, Jameis Winston aside. So I'm kind of, this is something that it's amazing to me. And when our culture dismisses the neat and wonderful traits of others, I really think it's at our peril. And I think this is one example. How cool is it that these fans stayed behind in a road stadium? And again, I'm not grandstanding here because I was thinking about my own. I leave stuff at stadiums from time to time. I leave stuff at movie theaters. I know a lot of other people do, and I told you I worked at Target. The stuff that people leave in carts and things like that would blow your mind. So I just think it's pretty cool, and again I couldn't help but think, just kind of comparing. There's at the Capitol this scene of where amazing people have been, and Lincoln and everything else. You had fights going on. It's just like, why can't we learn from others? I could not help but think of that when Ken sent me this article.
Um, all good points, and I'm also branching off on the World Cup. So a lot of the fans, I know you're the anti-TikTok stand. A lot of these guys, these Brits, the Scots up in Boston, are they're doing these TikToks, and the things they're amazed with the country with. Again, it makes me laugh. It makes me proud to be an American. Simple things, right? Like I seen this guy from the UK praising air conditioning, and again, this is,
Yeah,
not to sound like one percenters. We're very blessed here. When you
sure.
travel to Europe, air conditioning, ice in all their drinks, free refills. They are like shocked by free refills,
Mhm.
like of Coke, Pepsi, and all these places. When we go to Europe and you order a Coke, it's one glass bottle, and there's no ice, and that's what it is, and it is what it is. It's drink by drink there. And seeing that and hearing the things they, and then like the portion sizes, which again, these are all running bits, right? Like
Sure.
the bread, they go to these restaurants. I saw somebody there talking about, like, they put the chips and salsa down, and this guy's like, they put this, we didn't order this. And they're like, oh no, it's included. And they refill it. Like, and then there's also these memes, like guy arrives for World Cup and it's like this trim, skinny guy getting back on the World Cup, and it's like this huge, they did like AI, right? So I found that all funny. It's been an amusing week, and it's fun to see what people think of the country. Again, I'm one of these people that, yes, and I saw this other story, though, this percent that say they're proud of the country or whatever. And I get it. They try to say, oh, when your party's not in power, but we're very blessed. It's a great country, no matter who's running the country or what's going on. Are there some things that are possibly embarrassing to me or that I would like to see changed? That day will come. That day will come. In 2 years, when whether whoever's elected, I expect to see some things change. 2.5 years, right? But that doesn't mean that the country's not a great place. And I think sometimes Democrats get a bad rep for saying they're not patriotic. I mean, almost as if like the July 4th isn't a holiday for us or something, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. My dad was as blue could be, and was a blue collar mechanic, volunteered through the Vietnam War. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And loved this country. So and voted Democrat till the day he died. So that's such an old bit. I personally love the country. It's like the old thing with your own kids, right? You love your kids, but sometimes you're a little disappointed. You,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't you don't you don't not love your kids. You're just a
Wow.
little disappointed some days.
Almost like you can make a case our hot mics are, I don't want to say contradictory, because certainly wasn't bashing our country. I just said this is a cultural element that's kind of interesting. But I couldn't help but think of this. We had two students go recently to Barcelona, and I said, "What'd you guys think?" Well, we like the food, but we kind of like the artificial and the fillers that we have here. We sort of got used to that. So, but they mentioned the bathroom situation, and
Oh
you have
yeah,
to
that's one I didn't mention.
yeah, and that was like they it really enjoyed being there. They thought that everything I've said about Barcelona they agreed with, but they mentioned that, and they said that is one part that they do not understand, and I fully agree. So we
I
can
still remember in Barcelona, my wife had to use the bathroom, and I had to go into this shoddy bar that Ken Dunwoody found, and he thought I was getting a drink, but I wasn't getting a drink. I was just buying the smallest an espresso, just so at least I could get the key to the bathroom.
yeah, yeah.
And this was not a place for espresso.
No, but they were
but
everywhere.
but
Those machines were
but
everywhere.
that just shows you it's like a dive bar right on the water. And I'm like, you got espresso? He's like, yeah. He's like, €1. I'm like, I'll take it. And give me the key. So
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, just like, and that's the joy of traveling. You never know, here in Southeast Michigan, we don't see much that's historical, right?
no,
Unless it's at the Henry Ford, like where it's transplanted. You know what I mean? Like, but we also have air conditioning everywhere we go. Wherever you leave, you can go use the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like it's a great country. I'm proud. So as we get close to the
Likewise.
big
Well said. Well
birthday.
said.
So yeah. So all right. We are. I mean, I don't see any reason why. Well, you got the big grad party this weekend,
I
right?
do. I do.
Oh
This
man, yeah.
is.
Are you gonna be able to record next week? Gonna be all right? You're not gonna
We'll
be
make it
wiped out?
happen. We do have we have a guest lined up here soon. I have to work with him. Kind of a surprise guest for a lot of my high
Okay.
school buddies. So
All right. That's nice.
we'll
Yeah, we
line
got
that up.
we're getting close. We're getting down close to episode 210. Next episode, episode 212. Episode 210, I'm going to give away how we're giving away the shirts. We're going
Mike,
to
you know
because it's
what? I'm glad you brought that up. Can you explain? I was asked the question via text message. Ken asked this question. What is 212? Can you? I'll let you elaborate on this one. And I think
well,
we're safe enough time wise. What you
first of
can
all,
be.
we're episode 212, but 212 for those of you that aren't, and I'm not very well, we can have Crystal Fowler on if we need to explain this from the science department or Miss Torres. So I don't know if our listeners know this, but water at 211 degrees is just hot water. But you know what happens at 212 degrees? That water becomes steam, and steam can power a locomotive. And one of our past superintendents did this at PD Day to start the year off. It was inspirational. I think our test scores doubled that year upon seeing this video. However, as some people wisely in the science community have pointed out to me, that number is not the same everywhere. A kid pointed it out to me one day when I asked about 212, and he pointed out that the higher in elevation you go, that number changes. So, like everything else, fake news. It can be 212 degrees in Denver, Colorado is not going to get you steam, from what I hear, or maybe it's lower. I forget how it works. I forget what the number how it works.
So
That's why we
Crystal
need the science.
absolutely
We
has
need
to
the
explain
science. We
that.
need the science people on for this,
Yes.
because that's
However,
definitely not me.
just to add to that story, we're as adults, the things that kind of it didn't land, right? And so we watch this
But in a
video.
roundabout way, it did, because we're still talking about it all
We
these
are
years
still talking
later.
about it, but at the moment it
Oddly,
didn't.
I don't think in the method he thought.
No, he thought this was going to be like this was the rah rah thing. He wasn't going to give a speech. It was going to be
He thought it was going to be like
the.
Comerica Park in the upper deck, ripping off our shirts and twirling them around.
It didn't land, and so ever since, and that was probably Mike. You think 15 years ago?
Oh man, it's been a while. It's been a while. So 212 still, it's a very big number in the history of our school and district. We give away a Christmas present every year
Yep,
where we read the oral history of this story.
you're
So
giving it
so
all
two.
away now.
Well, I mean that's fine. I think that just shows you how things have traveled. So again, 211 degrees, water can't. Now I don't know if you can boil an egg at 211 degrees. You obviously can't because the water's not boiling. So 212.
There
Does
it
that
is.
help? Is everyone clear?
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Now I know I messed up the Denver if it's lower or higher. I'm gonna have to Google it and look it up after this is over. So don't send me the correction. I know I don't. It's probably wrong, but I know that it's not 212 in Denver.
Right.
So
All good.
all right, everybody. Have a great week, and we will see you next week.